First of all, for those of you who don't know me, of course, I'm Jack North, and I've been running the Soul Player blog since 2015, running the Asian Equation video course, and now running live streams with you guys where I'll be answering your questions about dating, specifically about dating Asian women. Now, today for our live lesson, I'm going to be talking about why women in different cultures act differently, why it takes different things to make them happy, and how that can apply to your personal dating life, and how you can use these larger lessons to help you structure the relationships with the women that you are in to make yourself and them happier. Now, first of all, of course, Big Simba wants to join in. Come on, buddy. Jump. Ah, there we go. Big Simba wants to come say hi. Say hi, Simba. Hi. Look, there's you. You're up there. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is differences in cultures. Now, a lot of times people talk about how Western women act this way and Asian women act a different way, and that is definitely, there's some truth to that. But the question is why? Is it just because they're raised certain ways? Is it because of culturally significant things like movies or TV shows, literature, things like that? And those do play a part in it. But there is a larger issue at play here, and that is general female psychology. Now, to get into that, we need to talk about some of the big personality traits. And one of the big personality traits, the one that most women score much higher in than men, is neuroticism. What does neuroticism even mean? It just means that they're going to be a little bit more anxious about things. They're going to get a little bit more emotionally affected, mentally affected by some of the different things that are going on in their lives. And in the case of cultures, you would think that that doesn't really affect people writ large, that it would just affect individuals. As in, one person is a bit more neurotic than others. They're a bit more prone to getting upset about things, or they're a bit more prone to being driven a little bit crazy because of situations, because of their interactions with other people. And I'm going to tell you that I don't think that that is exactly the case. I do think that there's a larger culture at play. We need to figure out first then what it is that makes women feel anxious, makes them feel neurotic. And I'm going to give you an example that every single one of you is going to completely understand immediately. And it's, hey, what do you want for dinner? Put a decision like that, something that is totally inconsequential, quite easy to solve, in front of a woman, and you might be watching her vacillate back and forth between 10 different options for half an hour or even more. They get really nervous about things like that, specifically about making decisions, any decisions. Now, whenever it's one that small, they get that upset and that worked up about it. Then how do you think that they feel whenever they have to make larger decisions, important decisions? And that is usually viewed as the man's role. So in cultures that are a bit more traditional, a bit more old school, it's usually the man's job to make big decisions like that so that the women don't have to worry about things like that. As in, you make the decision, but also you take full responsibility for whether the decision goes well or not. And the unfortunate fact, or fortunate fact for you guys out there, is that you're already in that situation, even if you don't know it. If you don't recognize it, if you don't accept it, you're still already in a situation where you're expected to make the decisions and to take on the burden of the responsibility. The worst part is if she makes the decision, you're still expected to take on the responsibility for the results. And that is becoming more and more increasingly true in Western cultures, where women are being told that they should take on traditional masculine roles, where they're being told that they need to start making decisions and running careers and doing all of this other stuff that they weren't normally required to do. This is causing them to become more and more neurotic, more and more bothered by different things, get upset about things that otherwise would not be that big of a deal. And they end up getting triggered, and you see all this crazy stuff going on in politics and on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or wherever it is that you're engaging with other people, you're noticing, I'm sure, that they're getting more worked up about things like that. And the more involved they are in that type of reality, one in which they are being told that they should take on more masculine traits, they're becoming more and more upset, more unhappy. Why is that? It's because they're having to make decisions that they aren't really comfortable making. They're not happy making them. That increase in decision making, that increase in responsibility is causing a self-same increase in neuroticism, in anxiety, in just general unhappiness, particularly among women. Now, some of you might think, oh, well, surely it's the men too. You know, men are getting upset and they're getting anxious and they're getting neurotic. And yeah, that's probably the case in some instances, but you would need to ask again, why? It's not because they're being asked to make decisions. It's because they're being asked to not do traditionally masculine things, or even worse, to do traditionally feminine things. And this isn't a judgment on each individual and what they choose to do with their life. That's not the point. The point is that whenever a society is beginning to dictate things that are making the vast population unhappy, both men and women, because of the new trends that are being foisted upon them, then you're going to end up with unbalanced and unhappy relationships on the individual level as well as the whole societal level. So how can you take this idea? How can you take this concept and start to apply it in a way that will help your life and your relationships? Well, the first thing that you need to do is start creating a strong masculine and feminine polarity between you and the women that you date, or your girlfriend or your wife, or whatever it is. You need to have, if not from the get-go, at least from today, you need to start having this stronger masculine feminine polarity. And that doesn't mean you have to do every traditionally masculine thing, or she has to do every traditionally feminine thing, but the more of those that you have, the more dichotomous that relationship is, the less overlap they have, the happier you will both likely be. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to enjoy every part of it, because enjoyment and happiness are not the same thing. But for example, if you're having to work extra hours, or if you're having to build a side business or something like that to create extra income, then it may not be enjoyable, but you will be happier as a result because you are able to provide more. That is far better than if you were unable to provide enough money or enough income for your relationship to flourish well. Or even worse, if you're relying on her to be the breadwinner, to win all the money. That's going to, even if you say it's okay, and you feel like, no, I'm pretty okay with that, deep down, you're going to feel like you are missing out on something. And it's going to start to create those neuroses and that anxiety in you. And you're going to start to feel somewhat less than you could have been if you had followed a more traditional path. The reason for these traditions is because it's naturally ingrained in us. There are certain things that men and women are more capable of doing than the other. And you as a man should be taking on your masculine roles, and you should be providing her with masculine energy. Masculine energy involves a lot of things, like, for example, taking on big decisions, like, for example, taking on the responsibility of making sure that everything is working well, making sure that the relationship itself is working well, making sure that she feels content, and most importantly, safe. One of the biggest jobs for a man in a relationship is to create a zone of safety. How do you create safety? I'm not just talking about physical safety. These days we live in a fairly safe society. It's pretty easy to be safe physically, but for them to feel safe, for them to feel emotionally safe, as well as deep down physically safe, not just safe from the predations of wild criminals or something like that, but actually safe in their relationship, to feel emotionally safe in being together with you. because you've set up a structure that she understands, that she agrees with, and that she will allow you to run. Because again, this is always a two-way street. If she is miserable in the system that you've created, then that means you haven't created the right system, or you've picked the wrong girl. And that's more likely the case if you're creating masculine-feminine polarity. This is one of the reasons that a lot of men get really frustrated by women who are ardent feminists, or they're very masculine in their presentation, and they tend to push back a lot more. They swear a lot more. They physically look and act somewhat androgynous. They act kind of manly, and it turns a lot of guys off. And not only that, but they'll start to get angry, physically uncomfortable, emotionally, mentally uncomfortable because of it. And that's because these are not the things that we are meant to be doing. This is not how we're meant to be functioning in society. Having the masculine-feminine polarity is the most comfortable place for most people to be. Of course, there are going to be exceptions. There are always exceptions. You guys should know this by now, but the exception proves that the rule is in place for a reason. So, in your relationships, in your personal interactions, you should start off by creating that masculine energy, by leading even just the first conversations, by leading the dates, by deciding the things that you're going to do. Instead of asking her, oh yeah, let's go meet up for dinner on Thursday. Okay, where do you want to go? No, you just tell her, okay, we're going to meet here at this time. And then from there, it becomes a little bit more of a discussion of like, oh, well, you know, I'm allergic to this food, or I have something going on at that time, so I can't do the time, but let's work with that. That's fine. You're still creating the structure from the get-go. You're creating that frame of masculine leads, feminine follows. And as you create that, it will help to create this polarity between the two of you, and this energy that will naturally encourage her to follow along behind you. And that is a good thing, because she's going to feel safer. She's not going to feel as anxious because the decision's already made for her. She doesn't need to worry about the decisions. She doesn't even need to worry about if she's going to like whatever it is, because if you picked something, it has to be good, right? So to the idea of what do you want for dinner, just pick something. We're going to go have some Mexican food. I know this great place. They have fantastic fajitas, and the margaritas there are absolutely killer. Great. I know this fantastic Indian place down the way. The chicken tikka masala is amazing. Let's go down there. We're going to get some of that. You can handle spicy, right? I think they can make it a little less spicy, but I believe in you. You can do this. You create this framework where you're making the decisions for her so that she doesn't have to worry, so that she doesn't have to feel that anxiety. And then you extrapolate that out further into more parts of the relationship. Not just what we're going to have for dinner, but even larger decisions like where are we going to live? If you're in a long-term relationship, are we going to live together? She can ask you that question. You can't ask her that question. You need to be making the decision from the get-go. Even something as simple as, will you be my girlfriend? Oh, come on, right? You don't want to give her that thing of like, do I want to? Do I even, is that a thing? Instead, you just start by creating that framework. Hey, I like you. We've been hanging out a lot recently. I think it's time for us to make this official. You're my girlfriend now. And then you go from there. I mean, of course, she's always free to say no. She's always free to walk away. We all have the human right to just not do something. But by creating that strong masculine framework for her, you take a lot of the anxiety that she would otherwise have in that decision-making process away. You make it easier for her to follow in your lead and to create that strong feminine energy that she would otherwise have to spend her time creating the masculine energy that she's been told to. By freeing her from that yoke of feminism and of third, fourth, 69th wave, whatever we're on now, where they have to be all the things all the time. They have to be the man, the breadwinner, the mom, the hero, the Madonna, the whore, everything all at the same time. Instead, you take half of that off of her and you say, no, 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 listen, I've got this. I've got the masculine side. You just take care of the feminine. And do you know what's going to happen? Her anxiety levels are going to go down by a lot. Her neuroticism is going to go down by a lot. You're going to find that you're not going to be in as many fights, squabbles about stupid shit. And instead, any discussions that you have, any serious decisions that need to be made, she's just going to defer to you and say, well, what are we doing? Because she already knows that you're going to make the decision and that you're going to make the right one. Because while it is a man's job to make the decision, and it is his job to take responsibility for the consequences of that decision, it's also the woman's job to support him and help him in the best way that she can. By taking away the masculine side from her, you free her up to take on that feminine role that she's born to do naturally. And if you're seeking out the proper women, the women who have that innate femininity to them, that ability to do so, probably because they were led by a strong father and a strong mother in the feminine sense, and hopefully in a strong culture with good gender dichotomy and a breakdown between the two, she's already feminine. She's already less neurotic, less anxious than she otherwise would be. And that is how you can start to create a strong relationship with a woman and help bring out her feminine side and help feel yourself be more fulfilled and happy by bringing out your masculine side. So that is where I'm going to go ahead and end today's lesson. If you guys liked that, please check out the links below where you'll be able to see the full video course. You'll be able to access the blog completely free. You'll be able to join the community where we have chats, where we have monthly Zoom hangouts, where you can get in on the next part of this video, which is the Q&A, where I'm going to be taking questions from members in the community, and we're going to be answering those, and you can submit your own questions as a member of the community, as well as make requests for video topics that you would like to see covered. So once again, this is Papa Jack, and I hope to see you inside. Till next time, boys.